Yes, I'm with Ben Hall today. Do I pronounce your name correctly?
Yep.
Yeah, in front of the slaughtered
Lamb.
That's
Amazing pub in London. Really good.
And this is the meeting point of the London.NET user group.
Yeah.
So there is a big question today. For everyone, the same question is: what does software craftsmanship mean for you?
So, for me, I think that's a really important topic. I think software craftsmanship is something which every developer should care about. Because for me, software craftsmanship is about producing high quality, maintainable code. But at the same time, it's about producing high quality code for the end consumer, which I think is kind of missed. When people talk about craftsmanship, many times they're talking about producing TDD, about producing kind of code which is maintainable for future developers. But more importantly, it's about producing code for the end consumer which works and is reliable, and you can produce and iterate very quickly, and so you can start delivering high quality value in a very effective way.
And so what's the difference between agile programming or agile methodologies and software craftsmanship?
So Agile's awesome, Agile's great. It's got some great kind of principles which everyone should adhere to. So TDD is a great principle, but a lot of the principles for me about Agile stem from extreme programming. So interaction with customers, TDD, having this kind of fast iteration, that's kind of XP.
What are the obstacles that prevent us developers to reach this ideal of software craftsmanship?
So for me, it's all about fear.
About?
Fear. So developers being scared to either learn new technologies or new ways of learning. So test-driven development is not a natural thing. Universities don't really promote it. Books talk about it in kind of the second half of the book. And that's kind of a predictor.
So how can you as a graduate or as a would-be craftsman, how do you become a real craftsman?
So for me, it's all about open source. It's all about learning and communicating with other developers who are very passionate about what you believe in. So open source has been the main kind of driver for why I produce high quality software. Because open source, you interact with other people outside of your company. You interact with people outside your own country. I interact with a lot of developers outside of the UK through open source means. And as such, I learned so much, and I learned how to produce better software, I learned how to produce more high quality kind of customer value stuff through open source, which in turn promotes my own company software. They promotes what I'm doing on a day-to-day job, means that it's higher quality because I've been working with open source developers a lot more. So talking to people like Sebastian Lambert, who did Open Raster, Open Wrap, talking to him actually directly relates to the work I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, because I take great ideas from him and I can directly relate, and I can directly kind of apply that work. As such, I become a better developer because I've got a much broader aspect. And for me, that's what software craftsmanship is about, is having a broader horizon about what you're trying to produce.
Fear is the big obstacle at the moment. How to overcome it?
So fear is something which is actually a very human kind of like concept. But for me, there's kind of two sides of fear. There's a good side of fear and there's a really bad side of fear. Fear is a good concept because you should fear things. You should kind of look at a problem and go, that's quite scary, that's quite hard to produce. Like AOP programming, for example, is quite a new concept for many people. and as such, they fear this new concept because they got educated doing OO, for example, and introduce a new concept like ALP or Sharp, post-Sharp. It's quite a new thing to them. They're like, they are automatically scared.
And how can we do as the makers of post-Sharp? How can we do what can we do to make people less afraid of AOP? Some people say, well, post-Sharp, no, because it changed the code under the hood, and I just don't have control. So there is a fear. There is a fear that it is doing something that it should not do.
And it really depends on the person and the team which you're interacting with. But for me, you just kind of have to, it's all about education, it's all about learning. You have to say, so we've been using your post-Sharp stuff, we've been doing a few post-Sharps on caching. Because caching for us and what we do is a key part about what we do. We can't scale without caching. Without cache.
Caching, yes.
Yeah. So we're using, or we've been prototyping post-Sharp to do caching layers. Mm-hmm. So we can interject at key points where maybe it would be beneficial. Mm-hmm. And you approach that problem and it's like, well, you could write it in the normal C# way. You'd have lots of if statements, and if it's in the cache, it wouldn't.
Yes.
But you have to actually take a step back and then like do little prototypes. Take a step back from the actual project you're working on, the production code which you're working on, and just do a spike. Spikes are so important in agile, in extreme programming, in test-driven development, which many people forget. The spike aspect during programming in like 5 or 4 kind of classes, and then people start to grasp the concept about why you want to introduce that technology. If people understand why they want to introduce that technology, could they understand it on a very self-grained, kind of small, non-production issue?
Yeah.
Then they can actually then start to relate it more directly to the code which they're working on.
Yes.
Which is why software craftsmanship, one of the key things is katas. So repeating the same problem over and over again. That's great. But let's kind of think about, we're repeating the same problem over and over again when we talk about logging, when we talk about caching, when we talk about these cross-cutting concerns. Yeah, people just go, it's normal day-to-day development. Instead, we should back away, produce kind of like a basic implementation with these technologies, and then push forward. Use the learning from a very basic implementation, a very basic hello world, but tell people how they should push forward. And if you give people that kind of hello world basic, then the fear is reduced because they understand the hello world. So if the fear is reduced, they're more likely to implement it in production code because they have no fear about the production code because they understand the core concepts. Well, that's how I found it.
What can we say to people? Start easy and then grow. As you get trust in the technology, grow in complexity.
One of the key principles about test-driven development is do the simplest thing possible. Mm-hmm. It's one of the core kind of like foundations, is that you should do the simplest thing possible, get it working, and then refactor it. You know, red, green, refactor. Something isn't working, do something which works, refactor it, make it how you want it to be.
And make a test so that you know when you break it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like one of the key principles. But so often, especially today, like people seem to go, well, I do TDD. Could I have a break-in test and I jump right into implementation and I do exactly what I would have done if I didn't have a test. But that's not what test-driven is about. That's not what the learning's about. Instead, you should back away. You should do spikes. You should kind of explore the technology in a very completely kind of like self-contained, safe environment. If you're doing a safe environment, then you can make it a lot easier to transition.